Good morning, you guys. It's your boy Bill Mahari here, representing Mahari Nation Sports Podcast. Much love to the entire LDBC and the entire basketball community. If you want more basketball content, tune in to Basketball Conversations every Friday night, 9 p.m. Central Time, as where we discuss basketball-related topics, news, debates, and everything else in the world of basketball. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon to get all the latest notifications when I start dropping videos and live streams. All right. So this is another episode of Morning Historical Perspective that I drop every morning at 8 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Friday. So this is a subscriber request. So we're going to talk about the Black Mamba himself, Kobe Bryant. Now, his story is pretty much a long, in-depth story, but I'm not going to go too much into it. But I will say that, on Kobe Bryant, he's perhaps, me in my opinion, maybe the second or third greatest player in the history of basketball. And when you look at Kobe Bryant's career from his totality, he is a mirror image of Michael Jordan. And when he came into the NBA in '97, um, he was heavily mentored by Michael Jordan because Michael saw something in Kobe that he didn't see in the other players that he was playing against at that time. Now, remember, the '90s were very, very, in depth and talent in terms of the guard position and the forward positions. And many people thought that, he was going to pass the torch to Grant Hill, Anthony Hardaway, or maybe to somebody else. But when Kobe came into the NBA in '97 as a 18-year-old, he showed the ability, but not just that, the enthusiasm and the willingness to learn to improve his game. And the greatest moment for me is when he took the floor in the 1998 NBA All Star game in New York City. Now, I remembered my mom, and I watching the game, and my mom asked me, "Who was that? Who was that purple guy?" That's what she said, and basically said the name Kobe Bryant. That was his name after I heard Bob Costas on the call of the game, and we watched how Kobe, performed with the 360 jam, the alley oop pass, passing, the shooting. I mean, he put on an impressive show. And to think, that was his first ever career start as a two guard, and that was during the All Star game, and he deserved the start. Um, he should have won All Star MVP, but didn't play the entire fourth quarter, and I know why. Because George Karl, who was the coach of that team at that time, he didn't want the veterans to get shown up by this rookie. And there is a story where Karl Malone, was trying to set a pick for Kobe, and Kobe told him to get out of the way, and Malone took offense to that, and basically basically threatened to sit out the entire game or never play another All Star game again because he felt that he was being shown up or disrespected. Now, 2 years later in Oakland, when Karl Malone was forced to show up to the All Star game, he pretty much shut the whole, the controversy down and said that, listen, let's be bygones. That was just a heat in the moment type of thing. But let's move on from that, okay? Now, when you look at Kobe Bryant's career in terms of his totality, in terms of, overall scoring, to me, the greatest year of his career was, that 05-06 season when he averaged 35.4 points per game. And many people felt that he should have won MVP over Steve Nash. Now, me and Ticket and the rest of the crew have had long debates about that, about did Nash really win those two MVPs. Now, you could say that Nash could have earned the first MVP, but the second MVP was a bit controversial to me because Kobe Bryant literally was carrying that 05-06 team that had literally had Kwame Brown, Chris Mim, Smush Parker. And this was Phil Jackson's first year that he came back from coaching after taking an entire season off with Kwame Brown and then a young Andrew Bynum. I mean, this was just basically an overhaul type of team, along with Lamar Odom, too. And he basically led that whack roster to 45 regular season victories and held a 3-1 lead against the Phoenix Suns until ultimately the Suns came back and won the series. But this was the year when Kobe Bryant dropped the 81 points that he had, in that season against the Toronto Raptors. And he basically did it on a variety of shots, through fadeaways, through driving to the basket, making free throws. And people forget, in that game, Kobe was down. Kobe and his Lakers were trailing during the game, and Kobe went on a 35-point third quarter to really push himself to possibly pass for 81, and then eventually in the fourth quarter he did get 81 points. And so, in terms of overall scoring and overall pacing, that might have been the second best highest scoring total in the history of the game in almost 30 to 40 years. Now, we obviously know the 5 championships, and we know that people during the three-peat era with Shaquille O'Neal, people like to take shots at Kobe, saying like, "Well, Shaq carried Kobe to those championships." I tell people this all the time. Both of them guys were great in their equal respects, but they both needed each other when it came down to championship time and winning time. And I take personal offense to that because both of them guys couldn't win without each other. And Shaq made the finals in '95 in Orlando with Penny and ended up getting swept. So they both needed each other when it was came down to winning time. But it was on the record that Shaq was very impatient with Kobe because in his ending of that 2000 year, Shaq was in his 7th year and he was still pursuing his first championship while Kobe was in his 4th year. And Phil Jackson was able to mend the relationship with the triangle offense, but did it in a way where he tried to create a positive relationship with Shaq than he did with Kobe, which explains some of the little bit of the direction between those two in their relationship. But you know what I mean? You obviously won three championships with Shaq and with Shaq, but people forget in that tough Western Conference, Kobe did a lot more of the scoring in the road games than Shaq did. Not to say that Shaq didn't do his part, which he did, but Kobe was much more important in terms of the matchups against those Western Conference teams because most of those Western Conference teams were power-orientated teams, like Sacramento when they had Weber and Divac, San Antonio with Duncan and Robinson, and then against Portland with Sabonis and Wallace. And Kobe Bryant was so critical of those series, specifically when he came down to breaking down the defense and creating his own shot for himself or for others. But I think that the biggest maturity of Kobe Bryant came in when the Lakers traded for Paul Gasol in 2008, because at that time Paul Gasol was a good player and was a former All-Star, but people felt that he was pretty much a soft player that you could basically push him around. And most of that was somewhat was verified in that 2008 finals when KG basically played physical ball with Gasol, and Gasol couldn't do anything about it. And that year, that experience toughened up the Lakers in '08 after they got humiliated by the Celtics in Game 6. And Kobe came back with a vengeance, you know what I mean, and won back-to-back championships in 3 years, pretty much showing that he was a great player and could still win. You know what I mean? And he only needed 2.5 good players to win those championships. You know what I'm saying? And the one thing that I love about what Kobe Bryant was this: Kobe had the ability to adapt his game just like what Michael did. Because when you look at Kobe Bryant as a younger player, he was explosive, athletic. He could pretty much score in a multitude of ways. But as he got older, Kobe had to learn the Jordan role, slow himself down, and perfected his craft, which means better footwork, better mid-range shooting, and improving his already terrific defense, and much more of an intellectual leader, and getting on his teammates a lot to pursue championship excellence. And Craig Hodges even said one time when he was an assistant with Phil Jackson in LA that Kobe was much more harder on his teammates than Michael was, which tells you a lot. You know what I mean? And Kobe to me was much more of a higher influence than any other player of our generation. Now, I grew up during all of Kobe's career and understood what the trials and tribulation he had to go through. When he went through that sexual assault case in 2004, not only did he lose sponsors, he lost pretty much some opportunities to win some MVPs, which had a lot to do with why Steve Nash won those back-to-back MVP awards. And it took a couple of years for Kobe to recover from that horrific controversy, but he still was able to perfect use that anger and that hatred against him to pretty much use it as fuel. Not many athletes can do that, particularly during that period of time. Thankfully, social media was not as prevalent as prevalent as it was back then. But you have to really understand that Kobe is a type of breed that he'll use any type of motivation, any type of anger that you have on him, and he used it against you, and it makes you want to hate him more. And I love that about Kobe. I love the fact that he was able to use their hatred against him and use it as fuel because he thrived off of that. Not many players in today's NBA can thrive off of people's hatred, and Kobe showed you how to do that. You know what I'm saying? It's a very rewarding thing to watch him, grow from an 18-year-old, and then unfortunately going through his past life, going through his post basketball career. But it's just sad to know that he's no longer here and not able to enjoy his post basketball career. He was going to be ready to pass on the torch to his daughter Gianna, and the way that I saw in the fields of the Mamba Academy, she had potential. She had real potential to be a star in the WNBA. It's just unfortunate that, you know, both of them were killed in that helicopter crash back in January. And it still doesn't seem real to me. It doesn't seem real that he's gone and his daughter's gone too. And we still, even though we're reeling from this whole pandemic period, there's still a lot of people who are genuinely hurt for what happened to Kobe. And so am I too. And so I wanted to pay my personal tribute to probably one of the greatest players to ever play in the game. And I know there's going to be people that are going to have different opinions about where Kobe belongs in the top five, but I put him at number three or at number two, and just in my opinion. But I don't listen to mass media the mainstream media as much because they have a bias and perspective that tries to fool the young casual sports fans. If you don't research the game to see how good he was, you get lost a lot. And I will say this, you know, through all of Kobe's, faults, he was a man that of high honor, of high integrity. And he played the game as hard as any other player you'll ever see in the history of basketball. When you look at his entire career from this perspective, the guy improved various aspects of this game. His shooting, you know, free throw percentage, um, his leadership skills, his intangibles, and he became much more, more easier to get along with in the older stages. But don't mistake in that 1 second that he was going to rip you if you weren't playing hard. And I could tell you that a lot of the stories that people try to say, people try to picture Michael Jordan as this huge, horrible person as a player. But Kobe Bryant, Magic Johnson, they were equally or maybe twice as worse as Michael Jordan was during practices and in games. I mean, he had the same fear level that those great players had. The fear of if you don't play up to championship expectations, he was going to ride you hard until you do so. And that's what great players and great leaders do. You know what I mean? That's why he became the great player that he was. And so, I just wanted to give my 2 cents of how great Kobe Bryant was. And, you know, it's unfortunate that he's gone and we won't be able to hear his Hall of Fame speech. You know what I'm saying? It's very, very a sad thing. But this is a personal tribute to one of the greatest players in the history of basketball, and a player that people will have never seen before from that period of time, and probably will never ever see it again. And so, a lot of kids, you got a lot of catching up to do to see how great Kobe Bryant was. And people will tell me like, well, Kobe couldn't do all those things in this era. Well, I would suggest look at his stats, look at his overall game, and come up with your own logical analysis. And then I'm gonna leave it up to you. And if you still think the same way coming in and he's coming out, then hey, that's your opinion, but you're obviously wrong in this case. RIP to Kobe Bryant. But let me know what you guys think in the comment section.